The sacrament of marriage is celebrated in Big Apple style near New York's Times Square. Tonight, we'll take you there. And can a good marriage begin at an online dating website? This couple found true love in cyberspace. Stay tuned for EWTN News Nightly for this Wednesday, February 12th, 2014. Thanks for joining us this evening. I'm Brian Patrick in for Colleen. Looking at news now. Yet another winter storm, and this one, we're told, could be catastrophic. The cold weather is already taking a toll on business, government, and possibly your health. Jason Calvi joining us now with more. Jason?
Brian, there may be a link between winter weather and stroke. New research out looked at medical records and weather, and it's just one more thing people need to worry about battling this winter storm. Another monster storm left a sheet of ice in Atlanta this morning. Cars encased.
I've lived here a long time, since the early 80s, and I don't think I've seen this, so it's pretty unusual for sure.
Areas of Texas fought dangerous icy roads. Ice was blamed for this 20-car pileup. The storm dumped sleet and freezing rain on the southeast. And tonight, forecasters are predicting large snowfall in the mid-Atlantic region. By Thursday morning, the snow should reach southern New England. People are stocking up.
It's got bread and cereal, crackers, soup, just things that you can make pretty easily.
But check out the usually packed White House restaurant in Atlanta, and you'll have plenty of people to serve you.
Four, rather, of my employees, they were brave enough to show up and try to serve the community like we always do.
The state of Georgia has stocked 22,000 tons of salt, 70,000 gallons of brine, and 45,000 tons of gravel. This cold weather, high humidity, and big daily temperature swings seems to land more people in the hospital with strokes. That's according to a new study from researchers at Yale, Harvard, and Duke. But here's a reminder of things to come. Take a look at this video from Sochi, Russia, where temperatures reached into the 60s today. Those images from Sochi remind us of what's to come here in the United States. We're just over a month away from spring, Brian.
Oh, thank God. And thank you, Jason. Well, some of the other stories our EWTN News Nightly team has been covering in today's world. The Archbishop of Belgium is asking for prayers tonight. Lawmakers there are poised to pass a law allowing child euthanasia. Right now in Belgium, kids with terminal illnesses must wait until they're 18 to request euthanasia, but the new law would abolish those age restrictions. A majority of Belgians apparently favor that law, but of course there's been vocal opposition from the Catholic Church. There's a new attempt tonight to redefine marriage. Kentucky must now recognize so-called same-sex marriages performed in other states. The judge in this case did not rule whether the state could be forced to perform these ceremonies with same-sex couples. Minimum wage for federal contractors has now increased from $7.25 to $10.10 an hour. Today, President Barack Obama signed the executive order making it official. Now the president is calling on Congress to raise wages for all workers. The new Federal Reserve Chair, Janet Yellen, has delivered the first of 2 annual reports due to Congress. She is the first woman to lead the central bank since it was founded 100 years ago. Yellen says she will continue her predecessor's interest rate policy. That means a pullback in stimulus as the economy strengthens, but continued low interest rates from the Fed. Ahead of schedule, the House has passed a bill allowing the government to continue borrowing money, no strings attached. The House has avoided another government shutdown, but for Republicans who wanted spending cuts along with borrowing, this is a defeat. With Senate approval of the bill a certainty, legislators will be heading home before the winter storm arrives here in Washington. A sting operation has busted what law enforcement is calling one of the world's most powerful drug traffickers. 24 reputed mobsters in New York City and Italy have been arrested after police uncovered a new cocaine trafficking route. The mobsters had planned on shipping the coke with canned coconuts, pineapple, and frozen fish to an Italian port. The first family hosted French President Francois Hollande at last night's state dinner. It was an elegant affair. The dinner was filled with Washington elite and Hollywood celebrities. Singer Mary J. Blige entertained the crowd. And now to the other side of the world. In their living room in northern Israel, a Christian family says they have witnessed a miracle. They say this small statue of the Virgin Mary has been weeping oil, and it actually spoke to one family member. As you can see, Mary's face appears to be slick with moisture even after it had been wiped off. Some 2,000 people have come to see the statue over this last week. In Sochi, a silver and bronze for the U.S. and a wipeout from star snowboarder Shaun White. White failed to even make the podium in a half-pipe event that the U.S. has dominated since 1998. In another unique turn of events, 2 gold medals were awarded in a downhill skiing event yesterday to women with identical times. Up today, the start of the men's hockey tournament, alpine skiing, speed skating, and luge. Kate Middleton is showing face for the National Portrait Gallery. The Duchess gave a short speech at a fundraising dinner last night, which aided the London Gallery. This is one of the few social outings that Kate has been involved in since the birth of her son, Prince George. Camels are for sale at a cattle fair in Nagar, India. A diverse array of animals will be displayed and traded for 8 days. Most of them are colorfully decorated. Their owners are too, some of them donning their traditional turbans. Orthodox Christians in Bulgaria celebrate St. Haralambos Day this week. He is the patron saint of beekeepers, and in Bulgaria, his feast day comes with ceremonies to pray for good health. During a special mass, Orthodox Christians light candles on top of honey jars and arrange them in the shape of a cross. Then, a priest consecrates the honey, which is said to have healing properties. It's National Marriage Week, and a study out today finds that more than half of 15 to 17-year-olds grew up with biological parents who weren't together. The study by the Marriage and Religion Research Institute finds African Americans have the lowest rate, with only 17% having married parents. The best numbers come from Asian families, with 65% married parents. Researcher Patrick Fagan says Americans should be concerned.
On education, on income, on health, on longevity, all of those are massively boosted by marriage.
The states with the strongest number of 15 to 17s living with their married parents is Utah, Minnesota, and Nebraska. The weakest is right here in Washington, D.C. But one Texas family is hitting the road to help strengthen marriages.
We couldn't even stand to be in the same room most of the time.
Greg and Julie Alexander were on the verge of divorce, but they say God's the reason they got through this crisis. Through him, they say, they learned about the grace of the sacrament and reclaimed their love. The couple will be jumping into an RV with their kids. They're sharing their story and encouraging couples.
It's incredible, and the reason being is not only has God redeemed our marriage, but then he calls us to share that with others, and the grace we receive from sharing our sacrament with others, it just gives hope.
The Alexander's Great Marriage Challenge will be coming to parishes on the West Coast in March. We have more on the issue of marriage tonight. President Obama has promised to use the power of executive order to advance his agenda, and this week we actually saw that happen. The Department of Justice issued a policy memo to its employees. It says couples in legally recognized so-called same-sex marriages should be considered eligible for benefits. Those benefits were only available to heterosexual married couples before. Now, this has provoked a lot of criticism from groups defending traditional marriage and states' rights. With us now is Brian Brown, president of the National Organization for Marriage. Brian, what does this policy memo mean for the institution of marriage?
Well, it means something about the nature of our government. It's basically lawlessness on the part of the Justice Department and the Obama administration. They're attempting to use the Windsor decision, which was a decision by the Supreme Court, that basically said the federal government had to recognize same-sex marriages that occurred in states that allowed it. But the Windsor decision did not say that the federal government had the ability to redefine marriage. So basically, by fiat, the Eric Holder and the Justice Department is saying that if a couple is in a so-called same-sex marriage in Massachusetts and moves to a state like North Carolina that defines marriage as the union of a man and a woman, that the federal government will recognize that same-sex marriage even though the state does not. So it's essentially saying that the federal government will rewrite the laws of a state like North Carolina to redefine marriage when the people have already voted in North Carolina by an overwhelming majority to define marriage as the union of a man and a woman.
Do you find this as scary as I do, what's going on here?
It is very scary, and the people have to stand up. I mean, we're going to have a March for Marriage on June 19th to highlight that people in this country, there's still strong support for traditional marriage. If you look at the mainstream media, a lot of times you think, well, all is lost. That is not the case.
I don't think so either.
In North Carolina, again, that was a recent vote. Over 61% of the people, when they had the chance to vote on this, voted to protect marriage. And yet you have the Justice Department undermining one of our central and core civil rights, which is the right to stand up and have our vote be counted. And it's undermining that by rewriting marriage in the states that have voted and stood up for traditional marriages. It's wrong and it's lawless.
Brian Brown, we appreciate you being with us, and we look forward to having you back here on EWTN News Nightly. Keep speaking up.
Thank you.
All right. Up next, we go to Rome, where our Vatican correspondent sat down with the Cardinal, who is near and dear to the late John Paul II. So why is he publishing personal letters that John Paul II actually ordered burned? This is something you don't want to miss. Stay with us.
I'm Diana Von Glahn, and I love to travel and to learn about the different cultures around the world.
Welcome to the Mediterranean Sea.
But more than anything, I love my faith, and I try to incorporate it into everything I do, including travel.
The Holy Land, a breathtaking region of truth and tradition, and the land where Jesus, the Son of God, lived and died. Coming to EWTN, a 6-part miniseries pilgrimage, exploring the land where our faith was born, the faithful traveler in the Holy Land. From Bethlehem to Cana to the Via Dolorosa, the destination is inspiration for the faithful traveler. Who is the faithful traveler? The faithful traveler is you. The Faithful Traveler in the Holy Land, here on the Global Catholic Network, EWTN.
You've heard of Lourdes, Fatima, and Guadalupe, but have you heard of Vailankanni? Called the Lourdes of the East, this Marian shrine in southeastern India is visited by thousands every day from many different faiths.
Hindu, Muslim, or Christian. She cares for everyone. I'm a Muslim by birth, but I have been coming to Vailankanni for 7 years to pray to Mother.
Vailankanni, the Lourdes of the East, here on the Global Catholic Network, EWTN.
We come from different backgrounds.
We set aside our differences.
We bring our talents and our gifts.
We unite for a common purpose.
And we strive for glory.
Construyan un mundo mejor, un mundo de justicia, de amor, de paz, de fraternidad, de solidaridad.
One faith.
One church.
Thanks for joining us. I'm Brian Patrick. As we take you to Rome now, our Vatican correspondent Alan Holdren spoke recently with Blessed John Paul II's longtime friend and secretary in an exclusive interview. Cardinal Dziwisz spent almost 40 years alongside John Paul II. Alan, I'm really curious to hear what he had to say to you.
Well, Brian, I just asked him the question that everyone's been wondering, is why did he publish John Paul II's private notes when he'd been asked to burn them? And this is what he said.
Quello non era scritto così in corrispondenza, era una cosa più profonda che può aiutare tante persone a scoprire come si prega, come si ama.
And so, Brian, this was an interesting conversation, which he said actually it would have been senseless and also just crazy to have burned these documents. They said he did what any prudent person would have done, and he published them. He made them open to the public.
Well, I love the fact that he pointed out that these letters will teach us how to pray and to love. What a beautiful legacy for Blessed John Paul II. During his canonization, along with John the 23rd on Divine Mercy Sunday, you'll see that full interview at some point in our EWTN coverage of that event. What about the Wednesday audience, Alan? Was there anything there that jumped out at you from the Pope's audience today?
Yeah, Pope Francis talked about the Eucharist today, and he asked people how it influences their daily lives. He said that it should drive them to be more merciful and to develop community. He said that people should be called to reach out to the poor, the sick, the marginalized. And he said if they aren't, they should ask themselves what they're doing.
Of course, we're celebrating marriage this week as Valentine's Day approaches. Did he address that at all?
Well, he is going to be having an audience with couples that are preparing for marriage. And this is coming up in 2 days' time on Friday, St. Valentine's Day. And this is an encounter that is a lot bigger than anyone expected. They were expecting fewer than 7,000 people, so it was going to be indoors in an auditorium here in the Vatican. But they're going to actually put it here in St. Peter's Square because there are about 20,000 people that have signed up.
Well, the Pope definitely draws a crowd, and it's certainly a good way to celebrate this marriage during this week. Our Vatican correspondent, Alan Holdren, thanks for joining us, and we look forward to that full interview with Cardinal Dziwisz. The Vatican is speaking out against a recent United Nations report. Vatican spokesman Father Federico Lombardi said the UN report shows a serious lack of understanding on steps taken to root out clerical sex abuse in the Catholic Church. The UN committee accused the Vatican of keeping a, quote, code of silence, making it easier for priests to sexually abuse children.
The main finding of the committee was that the Holy See has adopted policies and practices which have led to the continuation of the abuse.
That report also suggested the Catholic Church change its teachings on issues like contraception, abortion, and redefining marriage. We're joined now by Dr. Ann Hendershott, professor at Franciscan University in Steubenville. Good to have you with us, Dr. Hendershott.
Hello, Brian. Good to be here.
Does the UN have a point here?
No, they don't.
What are they trying to do?
They absolutely don't. Well, they're trying to marginalize our church, something they've been trying to do for more than 20 years, trying to silence us.
Why?
Because we're a major obstacle to what they want to do. The UN has really been on this course to bring abortion to the world, an international right to abortion, for population control, and we are an obstacle to that. And so what they've done is inflated statistics about clerical abuse, dredged up old cases from decades ago, and use that as a pretext of protecting children, saying that they are protecting children and we're not, which is really the biggest lie in all this.
But did they jump out of this issue of protecting children and start saying that the church needs to change its teachings on the core beliefs we have about contraception and abortion? Totally out of line.
Totally out of line. They don't ever try to get other churches to change their teachings. Plus, they don't seem to understand the church cannot change her teachings on these things. These are scripturally based. They're based on the truth of revelation. We can't change these teachings. You just can't do that. But when they refer to canon law, they choose this legalistic thing. Like the UN has lots of legalistic numbers, and they choose this canon law number on abortion and saying that we could just delete that. We can't delete that. It's core to who we are as Catholics. It's what the church stands for. And that's what they hate about us. Since 1994 with the Cairo, do you remember? You probably don't remember that. I don't know if you remember that, but that was a big deal. And they were really angry. The UN was very angry at the way the church stood for life. Really the only people that were standing for life at that population. It was like an abortion fest. But that wasn't the only time. By '99, Catholics for Choice were trying to get rid of the Vatican. We have observer status at the UN. And the pro-choicers don't want us there. They don't want us at the table. We're non-voters, but we can shade the negotiations. We can help shape the negotiations.
All right, Dr. Ann Hendershott, thanks for joining us. The book is Renewal, How a Great New Generation of Faithful Priests and Bishops is Revitalizing the Catholic Church. You can find that, by the way, in the EWTN Religious Catalog. Now, this past Sunday, we marked World Youth or World Marriage Day. EWTN News Nightly's Mark Irons was in the Big Apple for an event celebrating the sacrament. It's proof that marriage is alive and kicking in the city that never sleeps. Mark takes us there.
But really, you know, what is love?
In the hustle and bustle of Times Square in New York City, the answer to that question can sometimes get lost in the lights.
Something just feel around you.
But right off Broadway in Times Square, you'll hear the bells of St. Malachy's ringing home a different answer.
Love is showing how much you care for someone every day of your life.
This past Sunday, married couples gathered at what's known as the Actors Chapel to recommit their love on World Marriage Day. The Archdiocese of New York and World Marriage Encounter sponsored the event. It included guest speakers and a mass where couples renewed their vows. Some were celebrating over 60 and 70 years of marriage. Catholics hope the message celebrated here will make its way back out onto the streets.
My definition would be God is love. That would be my definition.
Mark Irons reporting for EWTN News Nightly.
Thanks to Mark Irons, who celebrated that with them, and he did that on his day off. As we celebrate the sacrament of marriage this week, Wyatt Spencer looks at the increasing number of couples whose path to the altar has gone through cyberspace. With Valentine's Day approaching, we visit the world of online dating as EWTN News Nightly continues.
Pope Francis will celebrate Valentine's Day in a special way this Friday as he meets with couples who are engaged to be married. EWTN takes you to Vatican City for a special event. Pope Francis meeting with engaged couples, Friday at 5 a.m. Eastern here on EWTN.
Freedom and license, two very different concepts, yet the culture in which we live often interprets them to mean the same thing. EWTN newcomer Gloria Purvis, along with Deacon Harold Burke-Siffers and Damon Owens, host a new series examining the incredible freedom given to us when Christ fulfilled his mission on earth. Explore the difference that exists between freedom through his Holy Spirit and the license to do as we please.
Because when your will is in communion with the will of God, then you can be truly free to be the person who creates and calls you to be. But you have to align yourself with what's true and what is good and what is beautiful.
Find out what it means to be authentically free at last here on the Global Catholic Network, EWTN. The apostles, headed by St. Peter, were chosen by our Lord to govern the church and spread the Catholic faith. This sacred tradition of apostolic succession continues as the faithful of Portland, Maine welcome their new shepherd, the Most Reverend Robert P. Dealey. EWTN takes you to the Cathedral of the Immaculate Conception in Portland for the Mass of installation of the Most Reverend Robert P. Dealey as the 12th Bishop of Portland, Maine, Friday at 1:30 p.m. Eastern here on EWTN.
As we talked about earlier, this week is National Marriage Week, leading up to Valentine's Day Friday. The movement is supported by Catholic bishops to celebrate the gift and the blessing of the sacrament of marriage. It's also a chance for married couples to advocate for singles who are looking to find their way to the altar. EWTN News Nightly's Wyatt Spencer has the story for us tonight.
When you think of Valentine's Day, this is probably one of the pictures that comes to mind. People buying greeting cards, restaurants filling up with dinner reservations. But for faithful Catholics like Joy and Alex Kubik, there's more that comes to mind during National Marriage Week than greeting cards. The movement gives the couple the chance to think back on how they met 9 years ago. Not in a traditional way, but online at CatholicMatch.com.
Since I had just gotten out of a long-term relationship, I was not thinking about dating. So that's why I was, kind of strong with Alex about like, okay, we're just, we're friends for a while.
They can laugh about it now. 9 years ago, online dating wasn't nearly as prominent as it has become. Today, you'll find websites for nearly every lifestyle and religious preference. Neither Alex nor Joy were thinking they would find the person they would marry through a website.
From there, I just said, I'm not really interested in kind of this virtual sort of thing going further than meeting you. I'm happy with meeting people this way, but if we're going to actually talk, I'd rather it be in a way normal people talk. And
that's the point both Alex and Joy say. A website like Catholic Match can be a starting point to meet other people with the same Catholic values as them. They say it's those values that have formed their foundation of their now 7-year marriage and how they're raising their 2 daughters.
The Lord can use many different ways to bring people together.
And this is just another tool.
Father William Byrne at St. Peter's on Capitol Hill in Washington says online dating could be one of many good places to meet other singles, but he urges Catholics to remember the purpose of dating.
What you're doing is discerning your vocation, and the vocation is marriage, and the presumption is that God's calling you to a person. What really is important is once the date's happened, that it progresses in a healthy and spiritually developed way.
So whether you are single, married, or religious, Father Byrne says we all have a vocation, a message Catholics can keep in mind both on and offline. In Washington, Wyatt Spencer, EWTN News Nightly.
Thanks a lot, Wyatt. You don't want to miss The World Over with Raymond Arroyo tomorrow night here on EWTN. Raymond interviews Cardinal Sean O'Malley of Boston, top advisor to Pope Francis. He asked the Cardinal about what advice he'd give the Pope.
If he were sitting here today and this camera wasn't here, and he said, Sean, what's the one thing I should do tomorrow? You would tell him what?
Oh.
Finally, just in time for Valentine's Day, a letter by the romantic poet John Keats is now on show in his London home. It's written in his own handwriting and gives fans of the Romantic era some new insight into his short 25-year life. The contents are simple. Keats is telling a friend he can't meet him because he's with his brothers. But the letter was written shortly before Keats composed some of his most famous love poetry, so for historians, it's exciting.
But I think we all experience youthful passion, but none of us can express it necessarily quite so beautifully or well as Keats would.
And we hope all of you have a good Valentine's Day. Thank you for joining us tonight. We hope you'll like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. You can catch our entire program or any part of it on EWTN's YouTube page. I'm Brian Patrick. For all of us here at EWTN News Nightly, thanks for watching. Good night and God bless you.
Stay tuned for another work of art from the EWTN Gallery. It's coming up next.
This is EWTN Newsline. I'm Tom Nash. Pope Francis has approved the beatification of the Korean martyrs. Pope Francis authorized the Congregation for the Causes of Saints to promulgate the decree for the martyrdom of the servant of God, Paul Yun-chi Chung, a layman, and 123 companions who were killed in Korea in hatred of the faith between 1791 and 1888. Yun was the first of the Korean martyrs. He came from a noble family and converted at the age of 28. He also helped his mother and other family members to convert as well. In 1791, Yun was executed at the age of 32 by government authorities after refusing to use Confucian ancestral rites at his mother's funeral. A bishop, a religious sister, and 2 priests were also among the martyred. For more about this story and all the latest, go to EWTNnews.com. This has been at EWTN Newsline. I'm Tom Nash.
Good morning, St. Anthony. Let us pray. Come, Holy Spirit. Fill the hearts.
Welcome to a day at St. Anthony School in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, the largest K-12 Catholic school in America. A beacon of hope for the future of Catholic education.
St. Anthony shows it can be done if people are really dedicated to it.
Igniting the spirit of its students, raising our future Catholic leaders. Catholic education is working. St. Anthony School, one team, one family. Here on the Global Catholic Network.